Welcome to our monthly Satsang. Tonight's guest is Cate Grieves. Cate has facilitated study groups, online study groups, workshops, and recently presented at the Australian ACIM conference. Cate has 4 YouTube clips, 3 of which relate to the Rules for Decision section of ACIM. And I was able to watch those again recently and really enjoyed Cate's explanation of that. Let me get rid of that notification. I apologize. In January 2013, Cate committed to a total devotion to the ACIM teachings and set herself the task to undo every egoic limiting belief in her mind over the following 2 years. She was at first unsure how to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit clearly, so she spent time experimenting with different ideas that other teachers were practicing. There were many beautiful healing experiences during those 2 years of undoing as she joined with the Holy Spirit and Jesus in an effort to walk through the vicious, egoic fear that was coming up. She also attended a local ACIM study group which brought greater understanding of the Course concepts. Now, 12 months after her full commitment, in January 2014, Cate had a revelation experience where she entered God's mind of unspeakable love. Now, I'm kind of skipping through her biography because I'm going to let Cate tell us about about her experience. But I will say that in January of 2015, Cate had a full dropping away of the ego. And since her awakening, she's dedicated her life to God and teaching A Course in Miracles as practical forgiveness. She's a part of the Pathway to Peace ACIM group located in Melbourne, Australia, where she works with other local teachers and students. And she most recently, in October of 2016, presented at the Australia A Course in Miracles 3-day conference. So let me get my screen back here where I can see Cate, and then we'll get started. There she is. Welcome, Cate.
Welcome. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining everyone who's out there. It's lovely to meet you. Even though I'm not... What's that noise?
What's that? Well, and I just put you on speaker, and I was just telling Cate that we had not done this quite this way before, so we're gonna work through whatever issues we have here. So, Cate, if we may have to switch to doing this the other way around. So, are you getting an echo there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you hear yourself. So that could be distracting as you as you try to speak with us. So let's see. Maybe she sounded clear for us on speaker. Well, let me. Okay, thanks, Regina. I'm going to unplug my little speaker. I'm going to turn her up here, and she wasn't getting feedback when we did it that way. So let's try that. So, Cate, if you'll just take a moment and help us check our system here. I apologize for that, but
okay, so that's fine now. I'm not hearing any feedback now, so that sounds good.
So let's see if how do you guys feel about this? Can you hear Cate? Does it sound clear? Let's see what they type. Oh,
great, terrific. Cate is low. Okay, so.
Okay, Ken, do you want to...
Okay, so what I was going to do just first off was just to say a little prayer to invite the Holy Spirit into the satsang. He's always here, but it's really lovely to be mindful to bring the Holy Spirit in whenever, and I like to do it before any of my groups or one-on-ones or wherever I am. So it just helps everyone get into the habit of joining with the Holy Spirit. So I'll just say a little prayer. Holy Spirit, you be in charge. I step back and let you lead the way. I completely surrender my ego mind to your loving mind of wisdom. of all that is. And I trust in you that you will illuminate our minds today as I allow you to speak through me and allow this love to permeate into our minds. Amen.
Amen. Lovely. Thank you. Yeah. So Kate, I kind of skipped around in your bio there. So if you would please fill in the holes there.
Well, what I think what's always been interesting for people that I find that people or other minds are interested in hearing is just about different aspects of my journey with the Course, because I did pick up the book in 1999. I didn't know much about it, but I picked it up at a bookshop, and when I picked the book off the bookshelf, I heard the words, "This is the only book you need, throw out the rest." I had a lot of self-help books, and I had been suffering from depression, chronic fatigue, very bad sore throats and tonsillitis. And I was working full-time as an accountant, and I'd had what the ego would describe as a fairly successful career, and was working in some quite prestigious organisations. But as we know, the ego is seek and do not find, so we're seeking always outside myself. So when I picked up the Course, I took the book home and I just didn't understand it. I was reading it and I thought, this has got the truth, this is going to help me. Some people say they pick up the Course in Miracles and feel the love, but what I felt, I could feel the wisdom, and that's what I was looking for. I was feeling it was an answer. What came through, this is the answer. And I struggled. I shouldn't say struggled. I attempted the lessons many times, and I didn't actually, for 14 years, I didn't listen to any other teachers. I didn't read any other books around it. I wanted the book to illuminate its message to my mind. So I did the lessons on my own, and I repeated the first 50 to 100 lessons many times. And what I realised was I was trying to do the lessons perfectly, right. Which I now realise that that's just the ego trying to do it perfectly. But I do believe that those early years, those first 14 years were helpful I did get something out of it. Every time you attempt a lesson, every time you repeat a lesson, or repeat do the lesson in any way, we're actually our minds are taking a step closer to the peace of God. So not one little thing can be overlooked because every time we repeat something, we're actually surrendering the way we're thinking, the way the ego's thinking, and we're allowing the Holy Spirit or Jesus or God to speak to our minds. So every tiny little thing that we do is we're on this path to the peace of God, and it all counts. And only the ego can say you mucked up and didn't do that good enough. And we've got to laugh at that, because we've got to laugh at the ego. We've got to laugh all the way to enlighten that. But obviously we don't, because we believe it at times. So when I had the relationship break up on New Year's Eve, 2013, and I just had enough, and I had other aspects of wanting a different way or another way, which is what the calling of the heart is, when we just see that what this world offers doesn't work. So when I started reading the Course and I started reading about the ego, I really resonated. I thought I don't actually need to read too much about what the ego is, because it really seemed quite clear that I had already realised those things. So that's why I was giving up. And I had to really basically give up knowing anything and just come completely free of any ideas about how to fix my life, fix my mind, fix anything or change anything. So it was this real, okay, I give up. Tell me what to do. So I committed and in March I went to a study group. And when I got to the study group, I was just full of questions, and I would ask so many questions of the facilitator there. I just wanted to know everything. And he said to me, one day, Kate, you'll turn up and you won't have any questions. And I said, I cannot imagine that.
Right.
And I used to get there an hour earlier so I could quiz him, because I felt like I was disrupting the group, because I just wanted to know so much. So I had this absolute thirst for understanding, what does this mean? You know, what does the tiny mad idea mean? What does the script? I started to listen to other teachers, and I got, obviously introduced to, the facilitator had a lot of Ken Wapnick. So, and then I started to read Disappearance of the Universe and other books. I started to buy lots of books around the course. And so I've dedicated 2 years. I was staying out of a relationship. I was living for the first 12 months of the 2 years with another lady, and she was a big forgiveness lesson for me as well. So I had a lot of correcting. Holy Spirit had a lot of correcting to do with me. I had so many grievances. I had so many judgments. Not me, the ego. So I now see it was the ego, but I would say me, because I believed it was me.
Right.
So I kept asking the Holy Spirit. So I did learn how to hear, and I actually heard some words at certain times, about 4 or 5 times. And it was 3 or 4 years ago now that I made that commitment. I have heard.
Kate, you say it was 3 or 4 years ago now that I made that commitment.
That initial commitment to go deeply with the Course and commit myself to studying the Course and undoing my ego. So I never actually had the goal of awakening, because I didn't actually know what that meant. It seemed obscure to me. What the hell is awakening? But I knew I could tell you what the ego was, right. And I could tell you that I was upset all the time. I was depressed. I was angry. Had massive. Well, the ego is angry. The ego is actually just actually hatred, fury. It wants to murder everyone, and it wants to murder me. That's actually, I love Ken Wapnick, because we have to look at this murderous thought system. We can't cover it up. But that's one of the things. So I just went, okay, let this be revealed. And so I dug down and I got in touch with my deep hatred, especially towards my father. And then I started to see that hatred was actually towards me, but it was totally out of awareness. So as I went on my journey, I asked the Holy Spirit this is one thing we can do, is we can ask the Holy Spirit for the understanding. So initially there was things like I'd work on a concept for a while and I'd say, okay, what is this time? What is this timeless? What is the now? Because I'm not experiencing that. And I'd say, Holy Spirit, could you help me understand what this eternal always is? What is the now? There's something I'm not experiencing that other awakened minds are, and could you help me understand it? And so I would ask, and then I would just leave it, and I'd just, So I remember one day I was out walking my dog, and I was just, not thinking about anything, just looking around me, enjoying the walk, and suddenly, bang, I got the full realisation of the eternal always, that there's only now, and there's nothing but now. And so I understood it, but I can't tell you how I understood it, because it's not thinking that brings it in. It's just this realisation. So
it's not it's not something you can put in words.
No, it's an experience of timelessness, and it's an experience of there's only ever now, and that we need clocks to, while we're seemingly here, in this dream, but we can experience this complete timelessness, which is this timelessness of the mind of God, which is eternal. So it's beyond time and space. So I was able to slowly get more and more realizations as I went along with my commitment. And there's no two ways about it. I had a lot of fear. The ego goes from suspicious to vicious. Now it did go to vicious. But I had many, many beautiful experiences during those 2 years. And then in January 2015, I woke up one Wednesday morning. I was getting ready for work. I was working full-time as an accountant. I stepped into the shower and I'd done my daily lesson, lesson 21. It was the 21st of January. And when I was in the shower, my mind just completely shifted in a moment and I just started laughing. It was the most incredible experience because I basically stepped into God's mind and I could see everything was God. Everything became God. And at that moment, my mind became completely quiet. So I only put terms to it later on, but it was an experience of complete quietness. And also everything got illuminated into my mind as truths. These things that I'd studied in the course actually formed like a holographic teaching in my mind as truth. And I had been practicing this practice of seeing everyone as Christ, overlooking their body and their words and actually just joining them in their Christ mind. And I knew at that time, and deep knowing, that there's only Christ here. And if you're seeing something else, you're seeing something that's not here. But I was also shown about a month later, a dot to dot was shown in my mind, and not all the dots were connected up. About 70% of them were connected up. And what the Holy Spirit was telling me, that I didn't have it all, and that I had a lot of it, but there was more to come. And then over that next 12 months, there was more deeper realizations. And then what came through was this is infinite. So this is an infinite wisdom that just goes so deep. And it doesn't ever, so my prayer to the Holy Spirit is to just take me deeper every day. I surrender, take me deeper into this mind of love. And what's happened in the last 12 months is the love that's coming through now, the love that I feel, the experience of love is so immense. It just blows me away because the ego's just got no chance against this, the holiness that we are, and this love that we are is just beyond anything we can think about. And so that's really my story. I had lots of lovely experiences that I can talk about, which are beautiful. But that's really, so what I came to see at the end, when I sort of got to past the awakening, I just started to see that I was a bit of a way shower and just saying, look, if you really do commit into this, you can have this awakening. It's available. But you will go through the fear, and he says most people do, and I did. I went through, and I had to have the help. I had to have a lot of help because I went through extreme fear, but I just trusted.
And when you say you had to have a lot of help, you mean help from the Holy Spirit?
Yes, the help from, actually, when I was going through the really big fears, I called on Jesus, and he was there, yeah. And I went with Jesus in my mind, and I had these amazing experiences where he joined with me, and he went through all my fears, and I had one big one with financial fears, and from that moment when he helped me undo the fear, I've never worried about money. I've never had a thought of worry. And what happens when the ego drops away? What drops away is the fear, the commentary. It's like what it seemed to me was that I didn't realise was like having a radio on in the background and then someone turns it off. And you're like, oh, I didn't even realise that was on. The ego's always got a commentary everywhere you go. You know, you walk into a room and it's, oh, well, you know, they've got a lot of money. You know, it's got this background commentary to everything. Right. And that fell away. So what happened was it just stopped. I didn't do anything to make it stop. It just completely fell away. And then fear, anything of the future, thoughts or worry or plans of the future, I haven't had anything for 2 years. So the mind's very quiet because it's just experiencing what is now. And it's beautiful because what is just God in everything. That's my view. That's the mind of God that we enter.
Well, it's interesting, Kate, because you know, of course, the Course tells us, you know, that we shouldn't be having these judgments, and it's just interesting. You know, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg thing, because what I kind of hear you saying is, while you worked at letting go of your judgments, because you let go of the idea that you knew anything. And you surrendered to Holy Spirit and asked for Holy Spirit's interpretation, and you did that consistently, and that is what I've heard in your story. But the interesting part is the real letting go of the judgments happened of itself. It happened spontaneously. It sounds like after you had your awakening experience.
Yeah, for sure. And that was, you see, what was happening to me in that journey was I was having these experiences, and then I was going back and I was reading about them in the Course in Miracles, and I'm like, oh, it's saying it here, but I swear I'd never read it before.
Right.
And yes, it's like, well, I can only talk from my experience, but I had a deep calling to undo my ego mind, and I knew that joining with the Holy Spirit was the way to do it. Right. And it was difficult because I cried a lot through those 2 years because I had to be wrong, and I had huge grievances against my father, and so for 50 years I had been having those grievances and blamed him for everything that was wrong in my life, and to turn around and say, I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm completely wrong. My father is the Christ, and the ego just did not like that. He wanted to hang on to all these grievances and judgments. So that took 2 years of consistent working with the Holy Spirit. And so my prayer, I did a 3-step, which I found, for me, this was what I did. Every time, I did lots of processes, and I had 2 major ones, but this one was something that I did all the time. Whenever I got a fear, I would put it on an altar and I'd give it to the Holy Spirit, and I would say, you take this, I don't want it anymore. So I'd already given the fear, the judgment, or even the idea that I don't know how to do it. You know, I don't even know how to do this, so I'm going to give you the idea that I don't know how to do it. Can you help me do it? Right. So all these things, every single thing you can give to the Holy Spirit. So I'd say, Holy Spirit, you take this. And I still do it occasionally now. If anything comes up, I do the same thing. Holy Spirit, I give you this, and I leave it on the altar, and I say, you take it, I don't want it anymore. And I'd immediately get some relief. And then the next part is, help me see this differently. Above all else, I want to see this differently. And then the 3rd step the Holy Spirit takes is he brings the truth into our minds. And so that's something that I worked with, that little 3-step process. And there's many processes. There's lots of, you know, I've seen so many processes. But anyway, that was one that really helped me, and I'll just stick with that because it seems to really help.
Yeah.
So yes, but when I had the awakening happened to my mind, and I had no idea. You know, it says that it will just happen to you. God takes the final step, and he'll just flick your mind. But what I also came to see was when you've undone a lot of the grievances or all the grievances, that the ego can't hang around, because the ego is grievances, the ego is judgment. So every time you're willingly giving them to the Holy Spirit, and I've heard a lot of people say it's okay if you want to hang on to them, and I would just be looking at like just amazed when people would say it's all right, you can hang on to those, and I'd be thinking, why would you want to?
Yeah, well,
Just give them to the Holy Spirit. Just give everything, every single thing. Just spend a whole day giving everything, every thought, everything. Yes, yeah, putting it on the altar is very helpful, yeah. I found that very helpful. I've used an altar in my mind. It was like up in the clouds sort of thing. Put all my fear, anything, blame, shame, unworthiness. Yeah. So that was my little method.
Well, it's amazing, and I have found myself asking many a teacher, please give me the method. How do I do this? And I'm really working at letting go of the need to have a method, because I can see that that's just egos need to get more, gimme. But it makes it harder for me to ask these questions, right? But it's lovely. It's lovely to hear that. I mean, and the Course has been telling us that, I've been studying the Course since the 1980s, and it tells us exactly the process that you've given us. And I guess you're a living demonstration of the truth of what's written there, and I appreciate you for that, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, so let me ask you, and maybe it's not an appropriate question. If it's not, you tell me that. But would you describe yourself as, you said you weren't going for the goal of awakening because you didn't know really what that meant. But would you describe yourself as awake?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
I mean, there's all these little descriptions about. They talk about awakening, and then they talk about liberation, and I can only go by my own experience. But since that day in the shower, I've just had a quiet mind. And people are really curious. They're like, "Do you have any ego thoughts?" And I'm like, occasionally, yeah, something will come back, but it's very, very easy to spot, and it's a lot quicker to shift. And I just work with the Holy Spirit if anything comes up. So you have to be, he talks about it in the book where he says if you're not vigilant, the curtain will come down again.
Oh, wow.
But what I come to see is that there's longer and longer periods of this peace, the path of understanding. It's just this peacefulness. It just feels this, it feels like, I mean, I cannot describe how wonderful this mind is. I mean, if I can encourage everyone just to get stuck into the Course in Miracles and do it, because you will just live in this most beautiful, lovely mind. It is there for us, and it's and you don't have to be special, because I'm not special. I'm just this middle-aged woman from Melbourne, Australia, and like, who am I to wake up? And I thought, oh, who am I to have all this? And I'm like, but this is God saying, anyone can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And that's all I see. My message is just work. Just this works. That's all. I'm just a living demonstration of this works, and just keep going. And I had a little sticker beside my bed, and it said, "Never, never give up." And during the day, I'd come home from work and I'd say, okay, I judged today. I did this, I did that. But today, tomorrow morning, I choose again. And it just was this constant reminder to just keep going. Just keep going.
Well, let me ask you in that regard, would you ascribe your present state of being as resulting from your consistent practice, or would you say it's more a matter of grace?
It's practice. You've got to practice this. It's definitely a practice. Yeah, it's not a theology, and you get the state of grace from practicing the forgiveness, because what's happening is that all the things that you think outside you are upsetting you. You believe they are outside you, and you believe they are upsetting you.
Right.
So the Holy Spirit works with where you're at, and you have to practice it until you're given the deep understanding that this is you're looking at a projection. But we don't. I never tried to get ahead of where I was. I didn't try to jump ahead. I didn't ever talk about anything I didn't have an experience of. And I didn't even really understand the course. I couldn't quote it like other people did. I actually came across some people that were wonderful teachers, and I thought they must be really awake. But I found that they knew the course, but they were too scared to practice it. I was always around the practicing. Just practice, practice, practice. Forgive everything. Look at your mind. If there's a slight... if you've got a slight irritation, it's hiding a murderous thought. You've got to allow that up. You've got to allow that up. You've got to look at that. And he says in the course you've got to look at the hidden hatreds and secret sins, because when we want to push that down, we want to be nice.
Yeah.
But the ego's thought system isn't nice, and it's out of our awareness. And I knew that it was the unconscious stuff in my mind that I had to bring up. So I'd have sometimes I'd come home from work on a Friday night, and I'd have a whole weekend to myself, and I would do my own retreat, and I would have a Course in Miracles. I'd have a journal, and I would just spend from Friday night till Sunday night bringing up anything in my mind, all my grievances. I would read from the Course, I would join with the Holy Spirit, I'd go for walks, I'd meditate, and I'd sometimes listen to some teachings. And I would just say, okay, this weekend I'm going to undo this belief about certain things. I had lots of beliefs. And I'd just give myself time, and I'd go deeply. And we do need to do this. Well, in my experience, I had to do it. I had to go deeply, have time to go deeply into the concepts and the beliefs in my mind, because the ego is just made up of beliefs.
Right.
And so yeah, it's sort of so simple to just talk about it in an hour and a half, but it was a big journey. It was a really long journey, and at times it wasn't easy. It was really hard, but I had some really blissful, lovely times before I had the awakening. I had some really lovely, peaceful times, but it was nothing like once that mind shifted that morning. It was nothing like it again. It's just seeing. It was the knowing he talks about, this understanding or this knowing. It just cements everything. You can't go back to the ego's thought system. So I've got it's not egoic to say I'm living in an awake mind, or I'm living probably 98% with that ego. And what do you find? You just laugh a lot. You really do. You're peaceful and you're joyful. And honestly, what comes through is you're just really loving. You just open-heartedly hug, kiss people. You're actually encountering the Christ in everyone without a doubt in your mind. So, my father's always been, and he still is, his ego reacts to everyone and to me. And so when I see my dad, I just open my arms and I just give him a big hug and I just kiss him all over his face because I know who he is. And, I'm one of 6 children, and the other 5 have massive grievances towards him, and no one really wants to see him.
Right.
And I'm the only one that can take him on holidays because he doesn't trigger me. He doesn't. There's no way. And they're just all amazed. Like, how did you go on your trip away? And I'm just like, oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And this is what happens is when you're living in the Christ mind, it's only seeing Christ. It just doesn't see anything else.
Wow.
And that's God's mind. It doesn't see anything but the beauty of who everyone is. But you have to practice. I had to practice that to get there.
Yeah, and so was your experience that you got better and better, for example, with your dad?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And
yes.
then when it dropped away with your awakening experience, it all dropped away, I assume.
Yes, and I do believe when I look back now, I do believe that my dad was he was the one person I had to forgive because I had such deep hatred. But what you've got to understand is that it wasn't hatred to him, it was hatred to self. And it just was projected out to him. And that was all revealed to me as I was undoing. I was shown I had a bully at work that I was encountering during those 2 years. I had a huge amount of fear and intimidation from her, and the Holy Spirit helped me with that. And I came to a place of just deep, deep love for her. And then what was revealed was that I was actually the bully. And it was shown ways where I was bullying, and I was completely unconscious of being a bully. And I wouldn't have said that, but I had to be open to be shown where it was in my mind that these things were hiding. You have to get so honest with this path. The honesty that it takes, you're just confronted with it as you go deeper and deeper. All these things will just come up with your mind, but it's a gentle, gentle path.
Wow. Well, Cate, I want to remind people that they are free to ask you questions. They can either type on the board their questions, or they can raise their hand, and you'd be happy to take their questions, right?
For sure. Yes, any questions? Nothing's out of the mix. There's no hiding anything. You can ask me about my sex life or what I do. But, it's just a wonderful, wonderful way of living in. And even just on the journey, I had more peace. I think anyone that's been studying the course, yes, there's going to be a lot of. It's a bit like that analogy where the clear water is pouring into the muddy bucket and it's going to stir it all up. And all the stuff's going to come up, and it has to be seen. So but you do get periods of more and more peace, and then towards the end, you just get the peace.
Well, and which is good news. But Cate, a while ago you mentioned the other teachers, people who really seem to, at least intellectually, know the course. But you said that you felt that their fear was too great for them to actually practice it. How would I know that if I was having that experience? I mean, am I going to be in denial? And how would I or anyone else who's listening here, how would we overcome that fear?
Yeah, well, it's actually, you have to be committed to being vigilant, right, for any resistance. What am I resisting? A lot of people don't want to go to Christmas parties. Well, what am I resisting?
Right.
Spirit used some Christmas parties for some really good undoing. One time I went to a Christmas party and he said, now you've got to shut up and listen. You've got to listen really clearly today, and I'm going to teach you to listen. This is the next part. So if you join with the Holy Spirit, he'll give you, it's a very individualised curriculum with the Holy Spirit working with your mind. But anytime you get resistance, anytime you get upset, even the slightest irritation, don't overlook it. Just okay. Maybe you don't have time to do it right where you are. But the ego is always wanting something to be different.
Right.
And it's really just having a commitment to say, I'm going to look at every single upset my mind has, because it's in me. My mind is the cause. The cause isn't outside of me. And so this is how it can be, this is where it can be undone.
Yeah, that's that real responsibility for sight part of this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you say join with the Holy Spirit, It was interesting. I heard you speaking about joining with Jesus a while ago, and also joining with Holy Spirit, and it kind of sounds like you're talking about like joining with another person, for example, sitting down in the room and talking to another person, or being with another person. And at the same time, we know this is part of us. So can you describe a little more about joining with Jesus and the Holy Spirit and your experience of that?
Yeah, I liked the idea that it was something separate to me. It was more helpful because it felt like it was a guide, a comforter. I understand that it is now where I am now. I know that it just feels like, I would just call it living in God's mind of perfect love. But on my journey, it was helpful to ask this sort of helpful guide in my mind. So I saved a lot of money on psychologists because I had the real helpful guide right in my mind. Right. So this is great. But yeah, and it's the trusting. The trust, it's hard at times because I did go through periods where I've had a lot of doubt and I lost trust, but I just think, okay, it's okay. I'll just get through this, and hopefully the trust will come back. So I'm not trying to gloss over that this was an easy path for me. I mean, where I'm speaking from now, the mind that I'm living in now is very happy and very joyful, but don't think for 1 minute it was an easy path. Right. It wasn't. And so I definitely want to say that as the people that I work with one-on-one or in the groups, they're having a tough time. And at times we do, when to undo this egoic thought system, but it can be undone. It can be, and I'm the living proof of it. Yeah. But it just takes that willingness, the willingness to be wrong. Okay, I'm wrong about everything. Let's just clear the slate. I'm wrong about everything. Therefore, I can If I think I know anything, then how can the Holy Spirit guide me? Because I already think I know. Right. Yeah.
I see Regina's asked a question here on the board. Is there a story about a forgiveness that was especially challenging? If so, how was this moved through?
Yes. I've got a couple of really good ones that I feel... okay, I'm going to tell the one about the bully at work because that's always a beautiful one. So I'd had what seemed to be a bully at one job, and I'd left there to escape her. And as we know, It's the mind is the cause, so of course she's going to pop up somewhere else because I'm causing, the cause is in my mind. So I'm scared of a bully, so guess what's going to come up is a bully. So her and I, and there was 3 of us ladies were working for one senior manager, and she was in the next office to me. And she was a very large lady, very intimidating to me, what it seemed to me. My ego is very intimidated by her. So I joined with the Holy Spirit, and I wanted to leave. And this woman was making my life very, very difficult, and she had seemingly bullied a lot of other people at that organisation. And I said, okay. But she was also very nice to some people as well. So I went, okay, this is coming from my mind. And I was starting to get clearer and clearer vision. So I went home one day and I said, you've got to help me, Holy Spirit, undo this bully in my mind, because I know it's coming from me, but she definitely seems to be outside me, and she definitely seems to be attacking me all the time. Every day she's saying things to me, and it seems that she's having a go at me. And I'm taking it personally, and I'm defending myself, and I want to be free of this attacking defensiveness that I feel. So what the Holy Spirit got me to do was, he said, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine her sitting in her office. and I want you to go in with a bowl of water and a cloth, and I want you to wash her feet. I want you to be completely humble, and I want you to wash her feet as if she was the Christ. So he said, and I want you to continue doing this until you can actually see her for who she truly is. So it was a bit difficult at the start because I was scared to even enter her office. And I just allowed those feelings, and then I just entered with this practice, and I started to wash her feet, and I started to really feel this love bubbling up in my heart for her. And then I started to actually see that her mother had died as a very young girl, and she had massive fears and defensiveness. And I started, once the fear in my mind started to drop away, I actually started to have this really deep compassion for her. And then one day I worked with this for a number of weeks, and I also got to, as I walked past her office, I got to say, I love you in my mind. So every time I walked past her office, I would just say, I love you. And so with the washing of the feet and a deep humility and down on my knees, and what I came to see was one day I realised that I was washing my own feet, and that the healing was occurring in me, and that she was me. Wow. And then it started to illuminate in my mind that where I had been a bully to someone else in that organisation, which was out of awareness at that time. And then I'll just continue on a little bit because this story has another little aspect to it. Was I was going to a retreat a few weeks later, and when I went to the retreat, it was a weekend retreat, and it was my first retreat. I'd never been to one before, and we were doing the first day. We did this little gathering where the 6 of us were sitting in chairs and 6 were walking around, and they were just sort of putting their hands on our shoulders, and just we were just emitting love and care to the persons in the seat. But what one lady got to do was she got told to go down to my feet, and because we had our eyes closed, I was sitting in the chair, and so we were all expecting, I was expecting the hands on my shoulders and my head and stroking hair, but she actually went down, and she suddenly, all I did was open my mind, and she opened my eyes, and she was at my feet, and I just started crying. Wow. Because what came through was I heard the words, I am washing your feet, Kate. That was the Christ voice saying to me, I am washing your feet. And I just cried and cried and cried, and the tears just streamed down my face. And my heart just started to open to this love of Jesus, this absolutely perfect, beautiful love, and this experience. And then that Saturday night, the woman that ran the retreat, she was asking the Holy Spirit what to do as an experiential, and she got to wash the feet. So I just had this whole thing, and we had each person was lying on a yoga table, and as we went, we all had a turn. We all put our hands on one person, and one person got to wash the feet, and we put sort of this lovely ointment on their feet. And as I did it to the lady that I was, we all took turns, I actually just dried her feet with my hair. And it was just this really big surrender, this really diving into this love for my brother, this whole really big wow. This giving over of myself to my sister, to my brothers, and just this outpouring of love, and just nothing matters, a bit of hair, whatever. It was just this heart opening of love. And from that experience, I started to shift, and the girl, the bully at work, she couldn't get her head around me because I wasn't reacting anymore. I wasn't scared anymore. And I just came from this deep love. And I ended up leaving that job and we left on decent terms. Her ego was still reacting to me, but I couldn't feel it anymore. I just had no triggers anymore with her. And it was just this beautiful love that I was feeling towards her. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Thank you. Yeah, you say you had no triggers anymore, which reminded me of the story about your experience with your father as well. You know, it wasn't that they changed anything necessarily. Yeah, it just wasn't.
My father still reacts to me. He messaged me not long ago. He's got a holiday house, and he said I wasn't allowed to go there anymore because I was ruining the blinds, and I hadn't touched the blinds. But his fear was I was going down to the holiday house quite a bit, and his fear was I got told that he's scared that I'm going to go and live there. And so I just laughed. I just sent him messages. I love you, Dad. It's okay. I'm not going to live there.
Wow.
You just respond. You respond from love. And so, yeah, the thing about it with I've noticed is that minds still have egos. There's still going to be ego, but it's just my responsibility is to respond from love. It's my function, to be the light of the world, to be the Christ mind.
Wow. Regardless of what seems to be occurring.
Yeah, no matter what occurs. No matter what occurs. The script's written. I mean, we're just watching a script. We're mentally watching it go by, and we can just be in love with this script, or we can be fighting this script, just shadow boxing with all the shadows.
Well, I appreciate that comment, Kate, because I think there's a lot of confusion about what is meant by that script is written. Would you like to share your understanding of that with us?
It's the way I say it is I'll be very clear, I don't have an experience of knowing that all this has already happened, but I'm told that in the Course that it's all over and done with. Okay, so I'm going to be really clear. I've got no experience of that. Although having said that, I have started to, in the last 6 months, I've started to actually see the future.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, I've actually had experiences where I'm seeing 5 minutes ahead of what's going to happen, and I've just said, so I don't know, so that's the only thing I could say, because I only really ever want to talk about my experiences or how it relates to the Course. But yeah, but what I see is that makes total sense, that this world is going past. So the teachings of the Course start to illuminate as truths. Although when we first read it, we just, it sounds incredulous, really, that we're living in something that's already been and gone. I've had moments where I've seen how thought created this world. It's so hard to describe when your mind sinks into this sort of way of understanding. It's beyond the thinking mind. It's like realising how this world was made and that it's all happening all in this one tiny moment, that everything is happening in this tiny tick and it's all gone. But having said that, I'm still waking up in the morning experiencing this. So
right.
Mine's not outside the dream. It's still in the dream, but it's a happy, peaceful. And who knows what's to come, how deep my mind can get. But different things, like even just seeing 5 minutes ahead into the future, that was interesting. And so I'm starting to, I've never really wanted to go back into past life regression. I think this life was hard enough for me to get through.
I agree.
I just try to stick with it very, very simply, this Course. I just, just, what I'm experiencing now, at this, how our minds are right now, not in peace or in, we can get help with that. And that's all you really need to know.
Right.
It's helpful to know that this has all been and done and gone, and that it is a dream, and I'm aware that it's a dream. I see it as a dream. Yeah, it's just a total. To me, it's more like a virtual reality. And nothing. I can't be threatened because who I am is not this body. It's I'm mind actually. I'm in this mind of God that's viewing. It's still viewing it. I always thought when you sort of had an awakening that everything would go into light. Right. And sometimes when I say to people, no, everything's just God. Everything is God now. A leaf, a tree, a house, a building, a light, a cup, a book. To me, it's just how I'm looking at it. It's just an aspect. It's not even an aspect of God. It's just God, because God is everything. God is every single thing I see, but that's because God's in my mind. So when I'm meeting a dog or a cat or a cow or a bunny or anything, I'm meeting God, and therefore I have reverence. It's holy. Whatever I'm meeting is absolute holiness. So my love for that, whatever it is, it's holy and it's no different. And what also came into my awareness, and these words are a bit clunky, is I couldn't find, the me dropped away from my mind, and actually what happened was I felt spacious. My mind feels spacious. There's very little referring back to a person, because once all that defensiveness, once the past goes, and the past is just bringing into the present, it's just constant colouring the present moment. And once that drops away, you're living with what is. And what is just God. It's just beautiful. It's just like, because your mind is so clear of all these past egoic beliefs and upsets, and this should be this way and that should be, and he shouldn't be doing that. All that falls away, and you're just living in the beauty of the moment. Without referencing back to a me, because the me has to have the judgments and the guilt and the blame and the idea of a me, and that all just falls away as well. And you actually start experiencing yourself in everything, like you feel like you're in everything, everywhere, all the time. But that's an experience. It feels very spacious.
Well, I have not had that experience, so it's difficult for me to understand that. But I appreciate hearing it from you.
No, I know we're nearly out of time, and I haven't gone through any of the lessons. I was going to go my 3 favourite lessons.
Well, we've got what do we got? Half an hour. So do you?
Still, yeah, that's right. We've got half an hour.
Yeah. Sorry, so now's a great time. So let's hear them.
Okay. So how many people have we got listening?
Well, let's see. I'm having a hard time telling on this little screen that I've got. Maybe somebody else can tell. 23.
Oh, 23. All right. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say to everyone, I bless you, I love you, and I honour you, and I'm really glad you're here listening. And just lovely to join with you all, wherever you are. So I was just going to quickly present my 3 favourite lessons, and I was just listening to Regina before, and she touched on a couple of these lessons, which is in the 7. But anyway, I thought, why not? These are such important lessons, and it's really good. I found them helpful when someone told me these are some key things. So I think it doesn't hurt to keep going back to this. Okay. So in terms of setting your focus or your desire, lesson 185, I want the peace of God. Now, when that was pointed out to me, that was a huge help to set that as your one focus or your one desire. And I'll just read the first paragraph, and what happened was I had a CD playing in my car, and I got it. It's Bill Thetford reading out his favourite lessons, and he reads this lesson out, and I felt really joined with Bill. When I remember one day I arrived home and I was listening to it playing in the car, and I just thought, I want to sit quietly and absolutely want these words to be the truth for me. So it says, I want the peace of God. To say these words is nothing, but to mean these words is everything. If you could but mean them for just an instant, there would be no further sorrow possible for you in any form, in any place or time. Heaven would be completely given back to full awareness, memory of God entirely restored, and resurrection of all creation fully recognised. And that's actually a complete description of the awakened mind, which I'm now living in. And so that was just so important to have that as your one desire. So that's, to me, that was helpful for someone to say, Kate, put this as your one desire. And so what that means is you can't have any other desires outside that. So if you are desiring a happy relationship with your partner, if you're desiring more money, a better home, a better car, if you're desiring other people to be happy, if you're desiring your kids to be better, if you're desiring even a peaceful world, or to have a slimmer body, to have better weather, a better job, any other desires keeps you from the peace of God. So it's really important. So anytime the ego wants something else, you want to desire something else to be happier, you have to bring your mind back to, I only desire the peace of God, and that is my one desire. But you've got to also remember with this teaching that there is no sacrifice in this, absolutely no sacrifice. When you have the peace of God, you have everything. You've got the love. You are the love. You don't need love from anyone else because you're actually so full of love. All you want to do is extend it, and you're joyful in your life. And so there's no sacrificing in having the peace of God or desiring the peace of God. So that's a really important lesson. And I think it's really good to keep your focus on that. If you're really going for this mind of God or the peace of God, to keep focusing on that. I remember I had a Course in Miracles lady, she came to stay with me for about 6 weeks on stage, and she was the one that really helped me with understanding this as the sole focus of the Course. And one of her daughters wouldn't speak to her, and she kept talking about how she was going to, what she was going to do to try to get her daughter to speak to her. And we both realised that her desire for her daughter to speak to her was keeping her from the peace of God. And once you've got the peace of God, all those things sort of just work out. My relationships now don't have any unharmonious relationships. It will just bring you to the harmonious relationships. So that was
let me interrupt you for just a minute, Kate. I thought it was interesting. You said you can't have a desire for anything else, and a while ago you said the ego. That's what the ego is the desire for something else, for something to be different. So I can see how those things are diametrically opposed, and I just think that's interesting.
Yeah. Yes. And you can see when the desires come up. When you get a desire for, a better job or a slimmer body or, better this or better that, you can see how the ego can subtly use everything of this world. David, what was that page or section? That was lesson 185, the first paragraph of I Want the Peace of God. I won't read them now, but paragraph 2 and paragraph 8 are very good to read from that. Read the whole lesson, that's always good. So now the next lesson that I found most helpful in setting a practice. So we've got our focus, Can you just hang on a minute? I've just got to let my dog in.
Okay, great.
The door.
We'll wait for you.
Come on. So, the defenselessness, and this is a beauty, and I heard Regina talking about that before, and this was what I was practicing with my father and this lady at work, and with everybody. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. And do not overlook this, please. This is one of the most important lessons you can use if you want to undo the ego and get back to peace. You've got to give up all defensiveness.
Wow.
It says in paragraph 4 of that lesson 153, defences are the costliest of all the prices which the ego would exact. Yes, Regina just shared on it, and so yeah, Regina shared on the focus of the peace of God and defencelessness. So, and I hadn't known this. These are things that actually I found on my journey. So it's just confirming, isn't it? It's lovely to see we're all on the same page. Right. And I like to. It's nice because you know what, we have to hear this message hundreds of different ways for it to really get through. So now, when you're defensive, so what it is just to be completely defenceless. So we're watching our minds, where it wants to justify, where it wants to explain, where it wants to be in a story. And so actually being defencelessness is strength. He says it in paragraph 6. Defencelessness is strength. Honestly, when I started practicing this, I started to get this inner strength. It felt so good. I don't have to justify anything. I don't have to defend myself in any way. And it testifies to the recognition of the Christ in you, because Christ doesn't defend anything. And yes, Kate sounds Aussie. Yes, I'm an Aussie. Welcome, Dr. Hill. So, yeah, this is a practice. And so lesson 153, I won't go through it in full detail, but just to give a bit of an understanding that these are great. Well, the first one is set your focus as only desiring the peace of God. Lesson 53, practice defencelessness, because it's your quick way to getting peace. And it's wonderful. You go through your day, don't defend. What are you defending anyway? The ego's saying they're just defending nothing. The last one was if you are suffering any anxiety, anytime anyone comes to me and just says, look, I'm in a massive panic, I can't even look at the course, I just direct them to lesson 109, I rest in God.
Sweet.
And I use just those 4 words. Someone's saying they've heard me before, probably. They're all saying the same. I rest in God, yeah. Sometimes I just walk around during the day and just say, I rest in God. And that's a beautiful lesson for any anxiety.
Wow.
So,
I'm trying to write this down, take notes, and talk at the same time. I apologize.
That's fine. No, you take. Yeah. So there's a couple of little things I've written down here. Make a commitment. It's beautiful. You'll get a lot of fear. Your ego will say, no, you don't want to commit to this. You don't know what's going to happen. You'll end up in a mental institution. You'll go mad. You'll lose all your money. You'll lose all your friends. It's got a whole... Look, there's nothing that the ego could say to anyone that it hasn't said to me, because it's a thought system of fear.
Right.
Never correct anyone. It's a beautiful one. It's a bit like being defensive, but it's actually really just love. Just don't correct anyone. Go through your whole day not correcting anyone. That's a really good one. Watch your mind like a hawk. And and surrender and join with the Holy Spirit or Jesus. And he goes through the manual for teachers, where he asks us to join in the morning and at night. That's a great practice. And the surrendering. And just focus on accepting the atonement for yourself. Let everything be as it is, and just the atonement is the correction to your thinking by the Holy Spirit, which is the forgiveness. Work with seeing the Christ in everyone you meet. Overlook the body, overlook the words, and focus on who they truly are. Because as you see him, you see yourself, and the more you're interacting with the Christ, or the innocence or the guiltlessness in who you're in a conversation with, what happens is your mind doesn't know the difference between what's outside you and what is in your mind, what's inside you. So what happens is that as you're seeing the Christ in others, your mind is revealing its Christ self to you. You are getting healed.
Right, and I guess the opposite of that is true as well. If you're seeing problems, you're participating in those problems. You're inviting them, right?
Yes.
If you're seeing anything but the Christ mind, that's what you'll experience.
That's it, and it's a good practice too, because you will be triggered. Definitely, the ego is it gets weaker and weaker. The ego just starts to fade away, and what you find is as you undo each little fear in your mind, it sometimes comes back in another way, but it'll come back in a lighter way, and then you just got to keep working with that and keep offering it to the Holy Spirit.
Well, that's good news that it begins to fade, because some days it doesn't feel like it's any lighter than it's ever been.
You gotta laugh.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's one of two choices, right? Laugh or cry. It seems like, yeah. I want to, once again, we've got about 15 minutes left, so I want to remind folks that they can ask a question either by typing it on the board or raising your hand, although I'm looking at my tablet now and can't see a hand raised, so you might want to type in hand. I know Kate's got her Pal Talk up as well, so she can, maybe she'll see it. But if you want to ask a question, now's the time. I wanted to ask you, you said you learned how to hear. You said this early on tonight. You said you learned how to hear, and occasionally you heard in words. So when you weren't hearing in words, was it just a knowing? Well, for example, when Holy Spirit said, I want you to go in her office and wash her feet and give you very specific instructions, were those instructions in words, or was that just a knowing?
It's really hard to say exactly how it came through. It was just given to me in my mind. It's like, when you wake up in the morning and you get the thoughts, I might call my friend.
Right.
It's that comes through. It's something that just comes through for you to do. So it's not, you might call it thoughts or understanding. So, yeah, it was, I can't really describe it. I mean, I know when Helen said she heard the course, I think, or heard the words of, or the voice of Jesus, it was probably more, I think she even said she was reading the words in her mind. This is funny because where is the mind? We can't ever find it, so we can only know. And I remember one day, years ago, someone said to me, can you know your next thought? And I was like, I've never thought about that. And I thought, well, if I don't know what my next thought's going to be, when it comes in, it's either going to be the truth or it's going to be the ego's lies. So it's just a matter of, well, I felt like that's why I think it's like we're robots, because what happens is the ego judges and we've got to try to get in between that thought and believing that thought. And that's where that's where the Holy Spirit helps us. So, but yeah, I remember my daughter initially. One of the reasons why, when I first committed into this path, was I've got a son who was hardly speaking to me, and my daughter was on drugs and committing crimes, and so I found that I had to join with Jesus to help me, to help her, and to this day, I mean, she's completely free of everything. She's actually on a spiritual path herself, and they call her the little Buddha.
Wow.
So she's a massive turnaround, and that's just been over the last few, 4 years.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, I just see that when the thing about it, I'd like to say to everyone listening that you are the light of the world. You are it. You are going to affect everyone around you. So we have to embrace this, that every time we even undo the tiniest little ego judgment, we're affecting everyone in a way. So we are the light, and we're just asked to shine that light. We don't have to have the awakening to do it. It's just, just the undoing one tiny little judgment, and just, you don't even have to speak about it. People will know by your presence. We can hear without speaking a word, just by being this presence. And the other thing is, you just got no idea how far your love or your non-judgmental mind affects others. It goes out in so many different ways and affects so many different people, and that's what he says. And even just, when people are gossiping around you and you're just being quiet, that's healing.
Yeah, that's healing for everyone. Healing for everyone.
Exactly.
Well, and I heard you, I like I say, I listened earlier today to the Rules for Decision, and was really moved by your point that when a miracle happens, it's a miracle for everyone.
Yeah. Well, the miracle, to me, the miracle is the shift from fear to love, because it's sort of the 50 principles. If you really look at them, they're really summed up into actually practice forgiveness is the miracle, and that's how everybody gets this miracle, because we've got no idea. There's these thoughts, because the thoughts actually creating this world. It says thoughts create form, and it's always creating. That is so out of our awareness that these egoic thoughts are creating this world. This world is an illusion. It's created by a mind, and we're actually perceiving ourselves in a body. And the Course says there is no world. Well, there is no world because it's been projected from a mind, and we're actually in that mind thinking it's real. But that can be quite startling when you first read the Course, but that is gently illuminated into your mind as you go deeper with these understandings, and then you start to get the realisation. And that's okay, because then you start to realise, I can't be threatened. Who I am can't be threatened. And that brings a deep, deep peace. And then it's just really living in the happy dream.
Well, Kate, isn't there a danger? You said a while ago, I never got ahead of myself, which I appreciated that. But I think that some of us do. Some of us, my tendency is to, like I said a while ago, grasp, and want to be on the next step instead of the one that I'm on. And I think some people may have the tendency to use what the Course says and what we're learning from the Course in kind of a denial. So that, so you're saying, well, there is no world and I'm not really here, so everything's cool and I don't have anything to work on. So how would you suggest that we address that within ourselves?
I think just be really, really honest about where you are, and know just the ego will always try to want to be more spiritual or more ahead. actually I had a great fear of speaking about things that I didn't fully understand. So I already made a commitment. I was never going to speak about anything in the course that I didn't understand. I started a study group. I think it was around just at the time I committed it must have been 12 months later. Yeah, anyway, it was about 12 months after I'd made this commitment to the course. And I was terrified because I thought, I'm going to have to read things that I've got no experience of. There is no world. Well, I'm actually feeling like there is. So, and what came through, the Holy Spirit just said, well, just say that, because you've got to be honest.
Right.
And like I said before, I don't have the experience that it's all done and dusted. My experience is that I'm here, but it's less. What actually happens for me is I just love this life. I love this world so much now. I just love people and I love interacting, and it's just falling in love with where we are. So before, I did. No, I'm on the radio. Sorry. I would, if I give you advice, I would just say, stay with where you're at. Just work with everything that's coming up in your mind today, and just be purely present with what is. And there's going to be times where you get some really beautiful peace, and you get this clear seeing, and then all of a sudden you'll be thrown right back into the ego, right. And you'll be thrown right back into the fear, and that's normal. That is a normal path. So, but if you just keep, that's what I experience, and that's what with others that I'm working with. Yeah, that's the experience, and you get thrown around all over the place. It's sort of your mind shifts around, and that's why those lessons I rest in God are beautiful for those days. Don't practice defenselessness. If you've got a lot of anxiety, just rest in God. Just imagine these big arms you're just jumping into, and I'm just going to stay in bed today and rest in God. I'm just going to just do what, allow yourself to have those days where you're just completely free of the pusher. You've got to do this, you've got to get this done, and just say, okay, I'm resting in God today, and I'm not going to do anything else.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's excellent advice. Thank you. That's lovely. Yeah. We have 5 minutes, so I don't know. Does anyone have a question that they have just been waiting to ask? Kate,
did you want to say something about that I'll be doing a program?
Yes, and I had I'm not clear on the arrangements, so you tell me. You know what the arrangements are. Share that with our listeners.
So Regina has said something about a hand. Is there a hand up at all?
Oh, there's a hand. Do you see it? I pulled that off my screen, so let.
Okay, so how do I escape
well,
from the present moment?
Let me let go of the mic, and I'll let whomever has their hand up, because I can't see it on the tablet here. I think
Regina sent a message saying talk about the time slot. That's okay. Thanks, Regina.
It's Regina's hand. Regina wants to talk about the time slot, maybe. Is that true, Regina? Let me figure out how to let go of the mic here. I've got things in a weird place on my screen. So I'm going to let go of the mic, Kate, and let Regina talk about it, okay?
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I do want to talk about the time slot, and I'll turn it back over, and I'm going to let Kate talk about what she plans to do in the time slot. I think that's better from her. But I just want to say that we have asked Kate to become a regular teacher here in the Awakening Together Sanctuary, and she has agreed. And she's going to be teaching on Sunday evenings from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's right before my 7 steps, right before me. And Kate, I think my question was, when do you want to start? What date? I didn't know if you wanted to start right away or wait until after the holidays. So if you will let me know what date, that would be great. Jacqueline's saying wait. I don't know what if you guys aren't hearing my question or what I'm waiting for. I'm not clear on that. Maybe wait is the answer. But I'm going to turn the mic back over to you all and let you answer the question. But yeah, we're really happy to have you joining us, Kate. The mic is yours, Jacqueline.
All right. Sorry, Kate, for the... I was telling Kate this is the first time we've done it this way with both Skype and Pal Talk. The first time I've done it that way. Regina, what I heard you say was you had offered Kate a number of time slots, and you were not sure which one it was that she wanted to take.
Okay, so I messaged Regina this morning and today, and I just said that Sunday night, 6 to 7 p.m. ET
She's got
would
that.
be a good time for me. Great.
And she wants to know actually your start date. I'm sorry for my confusion.
No, that's fine. I can start next Sunday. Why not?
Yay! That's very exciting. Yes, perfect.
Great.
Yes.
Terrific.
Excellent. We're all very excited about that. Listen, this has been a great satsang. It's just been so lovely to talk to you tonight. Yeah.
Oh, it's been lovely to talk to you too. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Is there anything you would leave us with in this last minute or so that we have?
Maybe I could just, I always think of the lessons towards the end of the book as prayers.
Lovely.
And I read them out a lot in my little groups because they're just so gorgeous. They just like speak right to your heart. And actually this one sounds nice because it's, today I let Christ's vision look upon all things for me and judge them not, but give each one a miracle of love instead. So would I liberate all things I see and give to them the freedom that I seek, for thus do I obey the law of love and give what I would find and make my own. It will be given me because I have chosen it as the gift I want to give. Father, your gifts are mine. Each one that I accept gives me a miracle to give, and giving as I would receive, I learn your healing miracles belong to me. A beautiful little, and so that was lesson 349, if anyone would like to read that again. But they're all just beautiful. They're all just beautiful. So, and I just would like to say thank you very much for having me on. I'm deeply, deeply grateful to share this message and to join with everyone today. And I love you and I bless you and I honour you. And we are all one in the one mind of love, the one mind of Christ and the one mind of God.
Lovely. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.
Okay. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.